Hello everyone, and welcome back to Math Hacks. I'm Brett, and today we are discussing negative exponents. I'm going to explain what they are, how to use them, and show you how to handle them in the context of algebraic expressions. Now, when you first stumble across negative exponents, they can be pretty intimidating, but in all actuality, it's pretty straightforward. Negative exponents are simply the reciprocal. Now, you may remember the reciprocal from elementary school when dealing with fractions. It's simply meant to flip your fraction upside down. The negative exponent is simply the notation for this concept of reciprocal. And now that we have that notation, we can incorporate it into our algebra. Now you may remember the reciprocal. It's simply meant to take your number or your fraction and flip it upside down. So, for example, if we had the fraction 1/2, the reciprocal would be 2 over 1. And vice versa, right? The reciprocal of 2 over 1 then would just be 1/2. So that's what our -1 exponent really means. It means to flip it upside down. So in this case, I want to take the reciprocal of 3. That is the same as 3 over 1. And just like here, if I flip it, I get 1/3. So that's sort of your standard problem dealing with negative exponents. For this problem, if you want to take the reciprocal, that's what the negative means, and you also want to apply a power of 3. So the way I like to start is by taking the reciprocal first. So just like in this last problem, I'm going to put it over 1, and I'm going to flip it so that it's the reciprocal. And then I'm simply just going to carry along the power. So I've already taken care of the negative, it's gone, and I just want to write a 3 here. So 2 to the -3rd is the same as 1 over 2 cubed. And my last step is just to go ahead and multiply out the 2 cubed. And of course that's 1/8, since 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Alright, so for this third problem, I've introduced some variables. Now, even though we don't have numbers anymore, the rules behave exactly the same. So I have a negative that indicates that I want to take the reciprocal, and I have a power of 3. Now, this is being applied to everything inside the parentheses. So I want to flip this entire fraction upside down and apply a power of 3 to both the x and the y. So perhaps this is a good first step, if you want to break it down to a couple steps, is just taking the reciprocal, and now I'm going to apply the power of 3 onto both. So we have 4 variables here, and 2 of them have negative exponents. Those 2 I want to take the reciprocal. Now I could do this sort of thing where I flip that whole value upside down, but there's a shortcut you can take here. So instead of replacing this with 1 over a cubed, since I already have a fraction bar in this problem, I can simply move a to the -3 to the other side of the fraction bar, and that counts as taking the reciprocal. So that'll get rid of the negative sign. So I want to do the same thing with a to the -5. I want to move it up to the top to get rid of its negative exponent. So you can see how I just moved these guys to the opposite sides, and that counted as taking the reciprocal. And so now all I have to do is I can either cancel or use my exponent rule where I subtract. So I'm going to choose to cancel, and looking at this, I have 5 a's being multiplied together in the numerator and 3 a's being multiplied together in the denominator. So 3 of these a's are going to cancel out with 3 from the top, leaving 2. Here I'm going to do the same thing with b's. I have 4 b's in the numerator and 5 b's in the denominator being multiplied together. I can cancel out 4 b's. So all of the b's in the numerator go away, and 4 of the 5 in the denominator, leaving me with just b to the first. So in the top I just have a squared, and in the bottom I just have b to the first, or simply b. In this last problem, we have 2u squared v cubed, all raised to the second power, multiplied with 3u cubed v raised to the negative 2 power. So according to our order of operations, we really want to get rid of these exponents on the outside of these parentheses first. If you remember your exponent rules, any power raised to another power, we always multiply the powers together. So let's go ahead and simplify this first part. Now let's go ahead and simplify this second part. I have two options here. Because I have this negative on this exponent outside, I can choose to move this whole term into the denominator right now, or I can go ahead and apply the negative 2 power to all three items inside the parentheses, and then at the end take anything with a negative exponent and move it to the opposite side of the fraction bar. I'm going to go with moving the whole term first, just because that feels a little more intuitive to me. So over here I'm going to add a fraction bar, and I'm going to move this whole thing into the denominator. And now, because I've taken the reciprocal, I can get rid of the negative sign on this 2 and just write it 2. I'm still going to have to apply the power to each one of these. I've just taken care of the negative first. Alright, so what I did here is just went ahead and multiplied these exponents together, and I applied the powers onto all three. So our last step from here is just simply to simplify. We can use the subtraction method, or we can cross cancel. I love cross canceling, so I'm going to stick with cross canceling. There you go. If you found today's lesson useful, I would so much appreciate it if you give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I invite you to join the Math Hacks community by hitting that subscribe button and following us on social media. You can find all the links in the description box below. Until next time, I'm Brett, and thank you so much for joining me.